Hello viewers, welcome to Kids Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2013 Nissan Altima with a 2.5 liter. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the gear selector is stuck in park. When the owner of the vehicle steps on the brake pedal and tries to change gears, the shifter selector is stuck in park. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to confirm the customer's complaint. After confirming the customer's complaint, then we're gonna talk about what directions we're gonna go so we can fix whatever that's causing this gear selector to be stuck in park. So basically, when you step on the brake pedal and turn the key on, you cannot go from park to reverse and the other gears. So it's stuck in park. So she actually has to manually push the release button to release the gear selector, to change gears. Otherwise, it doesn't do it on its own. Now, before we continue with this video, I would like to wish you all a happy new year. I appreciated all the comments that I got from all of you wishing me Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. So I want to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. If you are watching this video, I want you to know that I wish you a happy New Year. This is the first video I'm making in this year of 2024. And I hope that 2024 is going to be a wonderful year for all of us. Now, before we go in the vehicle and confirm the complaint, I also want to mention that the owner of this vehicle is a friend of mine and one of my subscribers here on YouTube. So her name is Ladisha Williams. So thank you, Ladisha Williams, for bringing your vehicle to us. Thank you for bringing business to us. So with that being said, let's go in the vehicle and confirm the customer's complaint. I'm gonna step on the brake pedal. I'm gonna push the push start button and start the engine. As you can hear, the engine is running. So I am stepping on the brake pedal and then I'm gonna press this button so I can put the transmission in gear. So as you can see, our gear selector is stuck in park, so it doesn't move. I mean, it's just moved. But when you put it in park, and to get it out of park, you have to wiggle it a couple times to get it to go in gear. Okay, so right here, customer's complaint confirmed. So what the customer has been doing, she told me that she did some research and went on Google and found out that there is a manual release over here. So if your gear selector is stuck in park when you step on the brake pedal, but you cannot get the gear selector to go from park to the other gears over here, what you have to do is you can get a pen or a screwdriver and get it in this hole and then push down. There's a little lever down here that you can push down to release the gear selector. So let me see if I can do this one-handed, just like that, okay? So now, this is what she's been doing. Now I can get it in gear and then drive, okay? But if you put it back in park, as you can see, nothing happens until you release it manually like this. All right, so customer's complaint confirmed. So now I'm gonna turn off the engine so we can talk about what we can do to fix this. All right, this issue is pretty common on these Nissans. There is a plunger under this center console. There is a plunger on the gear selector that releases this gear selector when you step on the brake pedal. So basically, when you step on the brake pedal, there is a voltage signal that comes from the brake pedal switch that goes to a switch that's under this gear selector, and then that switch energizes a solenoid. It's a little plunger that releases the lock that locks this gear selector in park. Okay, so usually what causes this issue is either a defective solenoid plunger or a defective switch below this shifter selector. What we're gonna do is we have to remove this center console so we can get access to the switch and the plunger and do some tests there to see if our problem is the switch or the plunger. The other thing that can cause this can also be a bad brake pedal switch. If you have a defective brake pedal switch, that's also going to cause the gear selector to be stuck in park, because if the brake pedal switch is not sending a signal to this plunger over here on the gear selector, you won't be able to release the gear selector from park to the other gears here. Now, the test you can do to test this, which I already did off camera, is you can turn the key on and then step on the brake pedal and see if your brake lights come on. If your brake lights come on in the back, that means your brake pedal switch is good. And in this case, when I step on the brake pedal, the brake lights come on in the back. So I have already done that, but I'm just gonna show you in case you have a question. So when we step on the brake pedal, the brake lights come on in the back. Let's go outside and check that. Go ahead and step. So right there, as you can see, our brake lights come on. All right, so that's good. So this means our brake pedal switch is good. So now let's go back in the vehicle. We have tested the brake lights. The brake lights work, and our brake switch most likely works as well. But this gear selector is stuck in park. So right now, with the key on and me stepping on the brake pedal right now, we should be able to move this gear selector from park to reverse. So now what I'm gonna do is I am going to remove this center console. So to get this center console removed, we're gonna have to undo 2 Phillips screws back here, and then we're gonna remove these plastic trims over here. So let's remove the back screws first. So the first thing we're gonna do before we remove the center console is to push this driver's seat all the way forward. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So after pushing the driver's seat forward all the way, so now we're gonna remove this panel over here so we can get access to the screws that hold the center console against the bracket over here. So I'm gonna grab this tool and then we're gonna pry this. We're gonna pop this back just like that. We can just push it out of the way. And here is the screw that we're gonna remove. And there is another one on the passenger side. Okay, so here's the first screw. Now let's go on the passenger side so we can remove the other one. Okay, so we're gonna get this. Actually, it's snowing outside. So we're getting snow for the first time this year. So that's exciting. So now, as you can see, our center console can now be lifted. So the back of the center console is free now. So now let's go to the front of the vehicle so we can remove the other screws. So we are on the passenger side. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove this little panel over here. So this panel just pops off. Okay, we're gonna carefully pop it out. Okay. And the next thing is this one. So we're gonna work it out slowly. Okay. We can just push it out of the way, just like that. There's another panel down here that we have to undo. This panel here has to come off. Okay. Just like that. We have to be careful with these plastic pieces. Okay. So very good. And then we're going to remove this piece, but we have to do that when we go on the driver's side. Okay. The other thing we can do is, while we're here, we can remove this knob over here on the shifter selector. So we're gonna pull this down. There is a little clip over here that we have to undo. this clip. Okay, we're gonna get it out of the way, and then this should just come up. We can just pull this up like that. Okay, very nice. So basically, after you remove this clip, then you just pull out the whole selector knob, whatever they call it. So this piece over here just pops off. Okay, so you can basically just pop it up like this. See that? Okay, so this side is free. So now let's go on the driver's side and release this plastic piece over here so we can remove this whole assembly. We are going to remove this plastic piece over here first. So this piece also just pops off, just like that. All right, and then we're going to pop this piece off as well. So before we remove this piece, we gotta pop this off first, just like that. Okay, and all these plastic pieces just have these metal tabs that keep them in place, so you just have to carefully pry them down as you remove them. We got this piece coming down, so we can now pry this up gently. Okay, this came out. We're good. We are making progress. So I'm gonna try to pop this again. Again, this just pops off. Okay, I'm just grabbing like this and prying it out gently. And doing this one-handed can be very, very interesting. So just bear with me here. Okay, so as I lift this, there is a connector over here that I have to disconnect. Okay, so there is a tab over here. You press this tab and then you pull down. So once you press this tab and then you pull the connector down, and then it's gonna come out. And now this whole thing should be able to come out. Now our gear selector is still in park. So here is the tab that we were pushing down to release the gear selector. So when you push this down and then you press this right there, so now we are in gear. Okay, so I can now remove this whole piece. This whole thing can now come off. So just like that. There's a connector here that I have to disconnect. There's a little tab in the back here that I have to push and then pull. So you see this tab over here? You have to push this down and then pull. So now this whole assembly can now come out. Okay, so we can just put it over here and out of the way. So here's what we have. So this is our shifter selector assembly. Now, since we are in gear, the vehicle is rolling, so I'm going to apply the parking brake. Okay. So we have two screws over here that we have to undo. We're gonna undo this screw and this one. And after we undo these two screws, our center console assembly should come out. So here comes the first screw. Now we're gonna remove the second one. So here comes the second one. So at this point, our center console should come up. Okay, so now I'm lifting the center console from the back So this whole assembly should come out. So now I'm gonna remove this center console. We removed all the screws, but there's actually a connector here that I have to disconnect. So you press this tab down and then release. Okay, so now our center console should come out. So now we're just gonna lift this up and out, just like that. So here comes the center console. We're gonna get it out of the way. All right, so first things first, I'm gonna disconnect this cable here. So I'm gonna disconnect this shifter cable, just like that. And then there's a little tab back here to release the cable. And then the cable comes off. Perfect, so we're good. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna leave everything connected. I'm gonna remove these 4 screws that hold this assembly in place so that we can test it. Because there's a plunger over here that releases the lock of the gear selector, but when I lift it up you will be able to see it. Okay, so here is the plunger. Okay, so basically what happens is when you manually push this, it releases this lever and then you switch gears. Okay, so when you go back in park, and then this little plastic piece over here locks it. Now, since we are still connected, usually it's this switch down here that goes bad. So what happens is when you step on the brake pedal, this switch over here sends the signal, the voltage signal, to this plunger, and then this plunger moves back like this to release the shifter assembly. Okay, so now let's try it. I'm gonna turn the key on. The key is on right now. I'm gonna step. You see that? So now it's releasing. Watch this. Okay, watch this. I'm stepping on the brake pedal. Nothing is happening. Let me show you the dash. See, the key is on the dash and I'm stepping on the brake pedal. So watch this. Key is on, I step, nothing happens. I don't know if you just saw this plunger move. It's just moved, but now it's no longer moving. So it looks like this plunger is failing intermittently. Now, the fact that this plunger moved a little bit, this tells me that the wiring is good. So we have good ground and good power coming to this plunger, and our brake pedal switch is also good. So we don't have to check the wiring. Okay, there's no need to look at the wiring diagram and figure out which wire is which, because this is a 2-wire solenoid, so it receives power and ground and then it gets energized. You see that? So it almost moved. Now, this switch back here usually loses contact with the shaft of the selector, because when the switch back here closes, then it completes the circuit for this plunger to release the lock that locks the selector. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this switch. So this switch has 2 tabs over here, 2 locking tabs. You just have to push these 2 tabs down, and then here is the switch. Okay, so the way this switch works is this lever over here, down here, pushes this switch down, and then when you step on the brake pedal, this plunger is supposed to move to release the shifter. So I am going to push this down with my finger. Let's see if this plunger is going to move when I step on the brake pedal. Okay, see how it's moving now? So I'm going to let off here. Now it's not moving. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to bend this up just a little bit so we can make connection, because usually it's this switch that goes bad. Now I also went ahead and got this whole assembly from a junkyard, so I'm going to try to bend this up and see if this is going to help. But if it doesn't, we're going to remove and replace this switch, because I have another one. Okay. So as you can see, I just bent this up. So let's put this back on. Just like that. So now our plunger is working. See that now? Alright guys, so that's good. It seems to be working. Okay. It looks like we fixed it. Now, we can leave it the way it is, or we can replace this switch just to be 100% sure. But since this is not really hard to remove, I'm just going to leave it like this, because I'm sure this is fixed now. So we are in park, step,